Okay, so something pretty major is happening down in South America. After years of what you could call frozen relations and a whole lot of tension, two of the continent's biggest rivals, Venezuela and Colombia, are actually sitting down and talking. And it looks like they're trying to start a whole new chapter.
So you gotta ask, right? After all this time, all this strain, is this for real? Is this the start of a genuine new beginning for these two old rivals? Well, a recent really high-level meeting in Caracas is definitely pointing in that direction.
All right, let's talk about this diplomatic thaw. This is a huge deal. And why? Because it's the very first meeting of its kind since relations were completely cut off back in 2019. The main goal here is a total reset, you know? They want to normalize everything from trade to political talks.
And you can tell just how serious this is by who was in the room. We're talking about the top dogs, the foreign affairs and defense ministers from both Colombia and Venezuela meeting face to face. And their agenda was crystal clear: get trade moving again, make their massive shared border stable, and, maybe the most important piece of a puzzle, get that energy cooperation back on track.
Okay, next up, the energy and trade revival. Because let's be honest, at the heart of this whole diplomatic push are two absolutely massive economic drivers. This isn't just about being friendly, it's about dollars and barrels. So, central to this whole energy talk is this one key piece of infrastructure: the Antonio Ricaurte gas pipeline. The best way to think about it is like a giant energy artery, one that could connect Venezuela's huge natural gas reserves directly to Colombia's hungry and growing energy market.
And the logic behind it is a classic win-win. On one side, Venezuela's state-owned energy giant PDVSA gets to sell its gas and bring in some desperately needed cash. On the other side, Colombia's own state company, Ecopetrol, gets a stable, reliable source of energy. I mean, it's pretty much a perfect economic match.
Now, for the other gigantic piece of this puzzle, trade. These two countries share a border that's a whopping 2,200 kilometers long. And before all the politics got in the way, this was one of the busiest, most active trade corridors in all of South America.
So getting all that commercial traffic flowing again is, you guessed it, a huge priority. And the trade relationship just makes sense. Colombia sends things like manufactured goods and food over to Venezuela, and in return, Venezuela exports raw materials and energy back. Getting that two-way street reopened is absolutely key.
So what's the bigger regional picture here? Well, this whole reconciliation isn't just about two countries. No way. The ripple effects could go far beyond their border, and maybe even signal a shift for the entire region's economy. You could almost see how it could play out, like a positive chain reaction. It all starts with talking, diplomatic dialogue. That leads to a normal, stable border. And once the border is stable, foreign investment starts to feel a lot more comfortable coming back in. And all of that together, it could lead to way more economic stability for the whole region.
For Venezuela, the motivation here is pretty obvious. These talks are like a giant billboard to the rest of the world, signaling that they are ready to reopen for business, especially when it comes to their super important oil and mining sectors. And they want to fix their international reputation. And for Colombia, the wins are just as real. A stable relationship means less pressure for migration across that long border, better energy security from a neighbor with huge reserves, and getting back into what used to be a major market for all their products. All right, so what does all of this mean for business? How do we get from diplomatic handshakes to actual real-world market opportunities? Well, a few sectors are definitely poised to benefit. Energy companies, for sure, are watching that pipeline news like a hawk. Logistics firms and commodity traders could make a killing if that border fully reopens. And honestly, any investor who has their eye on South America is paying very close attention right now. But, and this is important, we have to keep things in perspective. This meeting was a massive, notable step forward, but it's still just the first step. This is really just the beginning of what's probably going to be a pretty long and complicated road to rebuild all that trust and infrastructure.
Still, the official vibe is definitely one of cautious optimism. Both governments used words like constructive to describe the talks, saying it was a sign of a renewed bilateral relationship. You know, that kind of official language. Even after a planned meeting between the presidents got postponed, it tells you a lot about where they want this to go. Look, this is a delicate dance. You've got two nations with a really complex, intertwined history. The road ahead is definitely long. But these first steps, they force us to ask a really powerful question. Could we be watching the very first spark of a major economic revival for the whole region? Only time will tell.